Today on Parts Hold, we are going to talk about 5 tips for going from the counter to the parts manager job. We've got to give you a path that's going to make it really easy for you to transition into that leadership role. We're also going to talk about unidentified flying objects and just in general, Cliff's overall lackluster demeanor for partying in garages and much, much more today on Parts Hold.
Here to fill the order.
Hello, Mr. Honeycutt. How are you doing this evening?
Fantastic, on top of the world, which is where I stay.
Okay. This is, I've almost come to expect this, that I would have to say that overall, in rating your demeanor, you're quite a positive person.
I would have others that would maybe argue that that's not true.
Yeah, but they're wrong.
Well, you can tell her that because I'm not going to.
Oh, she thinks you're a positive person.
No, she thinks I'm negative.
Oh, really? Tell me more.
Yeah, well,
That's fascinating.
it's, I can be a negative person, I guess, maybe. Nah, mostly I live on top of the world. I mean, I've got it.
Your confidence is wavering here.
No.
It's kind of interesting.
No confidence wavering. I'm just saying others would maybe argue that that's not true.
Okay, well, I can tell you from my couple of years knowing you, I think you're always looking for an opportunity to improve, get better, and also to help others to live a better life, which is kind of where it's leading me into my first question is I'm just curious what you're seeing out there. And when I'm asking this question, I'm not necessarily just talking about parts departments. I'm talking about in the known universe. How do you feel about, and I bet you get asked this question a lot, how do you feel about extraterrestrials?
I don't know what I believe anymore. My whole world's been rocked.
So you used to believe in extraterrestrials, but now you
I
don't?
used to not. Maybe let's go back. I used to, when the whole ET thing came out, it was hard not to. And then I kind of got away from it. And now I think I'm leaning back towards it. But I don't know that I think that ET.
So we watch a movie in 1982 called E.T. We then begin to believe in the potential for alien life forms. Then you go through some sort of transition period where you go away from the light and you start to not believe. And now you're coming back into thinking that we're not alone again.
I don't know, man. It's hard for me to believe that we're the only thing out there. I mean, what do you think?
Okay.
And I'm not talking big-eyed green little people running around or little creatures.
They're big-eyed green little people, which means that their eye basically, maybe one eye, multiple eyes, I don't know, but their eyes are bigger than the rest of them.
Yeah, probably people was not a great thing because they're not people, they're creatures.
They're beings, sir. So do I believe... I feel like it would be very naive to think that there isn't a potential for other intelligent life form in this great unknown universe.
So do you think that there's UFOs from outer space?
Yeah, probably.
It's either this is where I'm struggling because sometimes it's a yes, sometimes it's a no. I can't be in the middle on the fence.
Okay, so I'm at the most likely level. Like, I haven't personally seen a UFO, so I can't say for 100% certain that they exist. I believe that the odds are highly in the favor that there are extraterrestrial beings, and if so, they got little things that they fly around, and I think it would be unreasonable for us to assume as beings, as human beings, that we're the most advanced of any kind of life form out in the universe. So there's probably somebody that's further along than we are on this whole journey. So then I would go into thinking that there's probably ships that go into space, and maybe they're saucer devices, maybe they're not saucer devices, but I'm pretty sure that that the potential for other life forms besides humans intelligent life forms exist?
Yeah, so I go back to say yes, I believe in extraterrestrials.
Okay, what has caused your teetering of thinking?
I don't know, there are numerous things. I mean, there's just
Was there an event?
yeah, well,
And was it alcohol induced?
no, no, that usually involves singing.
Do you sing a lot when you're drunk?
I have been.
Are you like a karaoke guy? Are you a cappella?
This is because mostly when that happens, it's with my friends and
Your friends in low places?
yeah, yes.
As opposed to being on top of the world where you are now? You like how I pulled that full circle?
Yeah, but wait a minute. The last place I sang and was inebriated was on top of a good friend of mine's bar in his garage.
Okay.
Shirtless and
And this, just in case you didn't know, being from North Carolina, super normal for people in North Carolina to have a bar in their garage. That I hope everyone picked that up. But super impressive. I mean, who wouldn't want to hang out in their garage? I was just in Virginia a few weeks ago, and I went to a poker game in someone's garage.
oh,
Really nice table and everything, but it was a stand-up
they have
situation.
little poker table, like the legit.
Yeah, the legit poker table, the legit chips, the legit chart cards, and like I should have known better is what I would say, but I literally lost $200 in 15 minutes.
Did you tap it?
And they didn't even feel bad about it.
Right. Well,
They're like, "Oh, here comes the mark." It was like I felt like those vacationers in the movie Rounders when they all went to Atlantic City for the weekend. Oh my gosh, that was terrible. I was that person. Okay, we digress. What's our topic today? I really like this because this is also a little bit of a journey that you took, right?
yes, I want to talk about how can a parts counter person move into parts manager.
Okay, what do you have? Are you going with like just a tips and you want to have a conversation? Do you want to do, I think there's like 5 kind of things that someone could do or maybe could learn, but I think that let's have a little bit of dialogue and give the 5 tips. How's that
I
sound?
feel like I messed the 5 things up. I feel like I want to go like 1 and then B and then, that kind of thing.
Okay.
That's what
However you want to do this.
I feel like I messed it up because I think people try to follow along and I give them number 1 and then I go down instead of going 5, 4, 3, and whatever.
By the way, the UFO thing was completely anticlimactic. Like
What's that?
the UFO thing, totally anticlimactic. Like there wasn't even really that good a conversation, but thank you for tuning in. And there was no proof, there was no story. It was just whether or not we believe in it.
Yeah,
Maybe next time, Cliff. We're into the subject. Too late.
Yeah, I believe. Yeah, I want to go through the list and just share the items on there.
Well, maybe just and just go with whatever you think is the most important, and then kind of like if there was a aha end one, let's do it that way.
Okay.
And I'll ask you questions.
Okay, let's start. I think for the future, if you're wanting to move up, you're going to have to understand e-commerce. That's
Okay.
a big portion of it is understanding how to put yourself out there in an e-commerce society, in an Amazon ruled society, where eBay and Poshmark and all these sites are gaining popularity from folks buying stuff. And in a lot of cases, they're buying vintage stuff, but so that would go into a whole nother scenario, but I don't want to discuss that at the moment. But e-commerce would be the probably the biggest thing, having an e-store set up.
How did you learn how to do e-commerce?
Trial and error.
Okay, so what kind of errors can you help people to avoid so that their learning curve's faster than yours?
Yeah, so I would say that they need to do their homework. At a time when I first got into e-commerce, and I'm kind of dating myself, so I feel really, really, you drug something out deep in my soul. But eBay was just becoming a thing when I first.
Okay, so 1938. Got it. Keep going.
So it was just a trial and error. We did a lot of wheels and tires on eBay early on. So I think it's just trial and error as far as that, as far as we were concerned. But they're gonna. I think you got to do a bunch of research. You've got to get some information out there. do a bunch of homework and study. There's tons of information out there now that you could get to set up e-commerce store and what avenue. I think it's not a one avenue either. I would say.
Would you pay somebody to set up your e-commerce store?
You're probably better off looking into the cost of doing so. There's a handful of companies out there that are doing that. I think there's enough information out there that you can get what you need. The bigger thing is there's a lot of companies out there that are willing to put your inventory on and create your own store. So they would be able to, create your pictures and have all that stuff downloaded, where if you do it on your own, you're probably going to have to do the pictures and all of that type of thing. There's probably an approval period, I would assume, with Amazon. I have not personally done Amazon because I was out of it by the time Amazon came on. So
okay,
I haven't done Amazon.
So it definitely seems like people are choosing either the eBay or the Amazon route, or possibly both in some cases. But
yeah, I think
I'd be curious.
The guys that I've talked to that are doing and are really successful are doing both. You can put your information on both.
Okay, so they're not putting all their eggs in one basket then.
I think you've got to diversify your portfolio, so to speak. You've got to put it out there. Whether that's Amazon and eBay, your own store from your website, your, on.com website that's not attached to your dealer website. There's multiple avenues to do. But I think e-commerce is going to be something that it's not going away.
Yeah, it's not going to get smaller, I think.
I don't.
So many people are like into that instant gratification. Like they can find a part, and then how easy is it for someone to search that has no idea about cars to try and find a part? So I always think about that as like, what would somebody buy on their own if they're a customer? Would they buy accessories? Probably are the thing that kind of pop into my head. Like somebody might buy a set of floor mats or fancy wiper blades or some sort of garnish for their car.
I don't see them searching out an alternator.
I don't either. Starter, alternator,
but
nothing like that.
The other side of that e-commerce that you got to think about is, how are you going to pay for it? You got to make it super convenient for the customer. So I think understanding e-commerce is a big key to going from counter person to manager.
Okay, yeah, we could probably do a whole episode on e-commerce, would be my guess, because there's strategies for shipping charges. There's a whole lot of rabbit holes to hop down, but definitely the parts manager of the 2020s is going to have a really good idea on e-commerce and how that happens. So if you're a counter person and your department's doing e-commerce, like be a little bit of a fly on the wall and try to see if you can't find out the how it works, right? That's what you're suggesting?
I would 100% start researching it now and gaining a good.
Okay, good.
Okay.
I like it. What else you got?
I got obsolete parts. I think they need to have an understanding of what an obsolete part is, because I think there's a lot of confusion out there. One person says this, another thing says that. So I think understanding obsolete parts, what it does to the department, and how it is a detriment is key for a counter person. Because
I think of the phrase "frozen asset," right?
Yeah, I'd agree with that. And most dealerships, think about it, the counter person just ordering the part. They're not thinking about, what's the next step and all that. I think a good counter person that understands obsolete parts, how to get rid of them, what's causing them, how to stop the bleeding, all that's going to be a key portion of, as you stated, releasing that frozen capital.
Yeah, so I think that maybe a way to kind of dip your foot in the tool if you're a counter person looking to be a manager is kind of being in charge of the return.
Oh, yeah.
What do you think about that?
Yeah.
Just understanding what will get taken back, what won't, what happens to the stuff that won't go on the return. Like all that stuff might be good practice.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's going to come into another one in just a second, but we'll come back to that. I'm just going to make myself a note to bring up something that you touched on there. for that counter person that's wanting to.
I just skimmed it. I skimmed it and it's time to go back.
You brush them.
Wouldn't that be awesome if we as human could have obsolete parts and get upgrades? Like Terminator style?
What is that?
I think that would be so great.
Like rejuvenate something?
No, like I want a mechanical arm with a freaking rocket launcher on it.
You want to be a
That's obsolete parts. What's that?
You want to be a transformer?
No, more like Terminator. I don't think I want to be a transformer. So much work. Like literally changing from a car to a robot to a car to... No. Terminator.
How about
That's it. That's the wave of the future.
What about Mr. Gadget?
Cyborgs. What's that?
Mr. Gadget. Where you could say, go.
No.
Gadget.
Are you talking about Inspector Gadget?
Yeah. Inspector
Go, Gadget legs. Okay, yeah.
I mean, that kind of
I'm
works.
familiar.
Okay. This one I would really like to focus on because I think understanding pricing structure and strategy is going to be key for a person wanting to move up into a managerial role. Because I think it's less of what you think it is. Understanding and being creative when it comes to pricing structures and how that works and what that looks like and where I should focus my attention on is much more important than the item. Does that make sense?
Oh, yeah, I think that does make sense. Keep unpacking, though. I like this topic.
So I think we get caught up in and focus on the piece. So let's just say an oil filter. I'm so caught up in marking up an oil filter instead of figuring out a pricing strategy for my inventory. Kind of lose the forest for the trees, so to speak.
Like where you're just focusing on that one part because of the count?
Now all I'm doing is drilling down on that item because I see this part leaving the counter so many times that all I'm doing is focusing on this one item where I have opportunities to make a lot more money off of a lot more items, but I'm so trapped in this one mindset. And I think as parts managers, I certainly was guilty of it, of trying to make it all off of one.
Okay, so spreading it out, and I think maybe looking for, like, to me, the oil filter's obvious. So the thing is that if you run a report and you figure out what are the most often sold part numbers, the oil filters are going to be at the top, right? So the theory is, well, why don't I make the most markup on the item that I sell the most? The problem with that is that when it comes to pricing for that particular job on the service side, and you probably aren't doing a ton of oil filters over the counter would be my guess, right? Maybe a few.
Well,
but go ahead.
Well, so I was going to say, think about that for just a second. If we remember, the first item we talked about was the e-commerce store. If I've got a good pricing structure, I can probably sell these oil filters by the case. If you go on eBay, you can find people that are selling them. I think they call them lots, where they're selling multiple units. So it'd be a great opportunity to get a good pricing structure instead of trying to knock it out of the park on one item.
Oil filter seems like a really good way to go, but at the end of the day, I think that is an item that you might want to stay somewhat competitive on just because there's a ton of opportunity. And I think you can make some margin on it, but necessarily that particular part number might not be the one that's going to kind of raise you out and make your parts department the most money. I always think that, if I've got a margin opportunity, it's never on the filter itself, but like on the little crush gaskets that go on most manufacturers' things, like with the drain plug, or even the drain plugs themselves can also be a really nice margin item. But kind of shooting at those lower price things or those lower cost things and having a higher markup on them, you can actually make a little bit more margin at the end of the day, and then you're not killing the overall price of an oil change, because that is one of those, when people are coming in on the service side, they're paying attention to how much the oil change costs. But I think that you're way better off trying to find strategic pricing and gross and margin opportunities on like the repair items that you sell. So that might be something that I would focus on, but like you have to become a student of what you're selling and how you're pricing it, and what makes what happens to the sales when you change the prices on certain things. But I think that that's all kind of part of learning, and there's probably a little bit of trial and error in that too.
Yeah, but there's definitely a strategy involved with that.
We could run that rabbit down the hole for a long time, couldn't we?
For sure. The last two I think are the most important, and I'm trying to decide on which one I want to do as kind of the drum roll item. But I think I'm going to do what my heart leans towards. So the fourth item would be being a customer advocate.
Okay. So unpack that for me a little bit.
So I think with counter people, we tend to have multiple customers. We have the retail counter customer, we have the wholesale customer, we have the internal customer, and we have the service customer. So we've got to be an advocate of all those customers, because we have to understand that that's where our business is coming from. It's coming from multiple areas. We've said this previously, and you and I've talked about this multiple times on a personal level, is running my business as separate businesses inside of it. And I think this is an area where you've got to be focused on the customer. It's getting to know the customer. I love going into, I don't know if you ever went into old race shops where, they were old speed shops back in the day, but where they were usually, stools sitting at the counter, and the guys are sitting around drinking, I think they call that coffee, but it was like pudding.
But it was optional to use a spoon. Like, remember how old? I remember the smell of like the old, like, shop coffee.
Yeah,
it wasn't it wasn't the Keurig.
No, and if you're really going to one of those really old ones, they use a pencil or a pen to stir it. They didn't even use a stirrer. Then stirrers weren't even there, right?
Yeah, it wasn't an option.
Those guys that were working the counters, like, they knew the story of Bill that came in, and that he had a 396 and it was board this, and like, they were really, really customer centric and customer focused. They were focused on the customer experience. And man, I don't remember those guys beating up anybody about price. They just went in and Ted behind the counter told them what the price was, and they took it and went on about their business, and they're putting coffee and left. Yeah, I think that there's a difference between when you're talking about pricing structure, you miss the point of, if I'm customer advocate, the price is less important.
Yeah, you can be a customer advocate and not give away the farm, right? That doesn't equal no profit.
Yeah, I think
it equals add value to the transaction.
But if I'm really focused on the customer, that price becomes the side item. I'm just connecting with the customer and being an advocate for them and understanding who they are. So I think that's one of the things that again, I think we're going to get back to that kind of place where people are going to want to do business with the folks that they like and understand them.
Nice. I like it.
Even to some levels, the e-commerce thing, understanding and being a customer advocate also means I'm understanding what I'm selling. So there's multiple things there with being that advocate for the customer.
Agreed. All right. Drum roll, please. I'm your last one.
Oh, I got to give that come across?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's pretty good.
Be focused on growth. Like, dream big. There's probably, hopefully, tons of counter people that are listening to this podcast or YouTube video watching that have never thought about being a parts manager. And I would ask, why not?
Oh, good point. Yeah.
Why not?
Well, I think because the parts manager's there for 30 years, right?
Yeah.
Like, they got a heck of a shelf life, those parts guys.
But I think when you were talking earlier, this is the thing that I want to go back on. When you were talking about earlier about learning how to send back the returns, if I'm a counter person and I'm wanting to learn and become a parts manager, and start asking how to do returns, start asking how to do the orders, start asking for more responsibilities, but be open.
Yeah, but at the end of the day, it's like Prince Charles waiting for Queen Elizabeth to die. Good Lord, it just took forever. Bad analogy? No?
I don't know if I don't.
I threw you for a loop on that one, huh?
Yeah, I mean the portion of it gets more that took forever.
Yeah, you know that there was a part of him that just said, finally. Right?
They breathed a sigh of relief.
Yeah. It's like, good Lord. I've never seen a woman have such a high tolerance for arsenic.
I'm on a tail end of my career. I only got so much time left. Oh my gosh! But I do think you got to ask for the growth, be looking for the growth, and want the growth. And
Yeah.
along with that, expect to make some mistakes along the way. It's all just practice for something bigger.
Yeah, and I think that you don't have to be perfect, right? As a matter of fact, I think it's one of those departments where, especially with certain strategies for inventory pricing, where I think that making mistakes is actually how you get a little bit better at the end of the day, and no one's sitting there and telling you to leave if you make a pricing mistake for the most part, right?
I would think for sure, and it's one of those things that you can change on the fly. If you see it not working, be open to change and open to move it. But asking and looking for the growth, I think is key.
Oh, I love it. Okay, recap your list.
Recap list. Number 1, be ready for e-commerce. Number 2,
Excellent.
be focused on obsolete parts. Number 3, understand pricing structure and how to set it up. Number 4 is be a customer advocate. And number 1 is always be focused on growth.
All right, well, there you have it. We'll call that like the 5 tips from moving from the counter to the manager desk. Like, why don't we do that? And then at the end of the day, I think that let's call it. And we'll see you next time on Parts Hold.
Here to fill the order.